Hello, my name is Brian Mann. Welcome to the Mann and Perrin Families of Western Iowa YouTube channel. Chances are, if you're watching this, you might just be a relative of mine. For most of my life, I have been curious about my family history. If you're like me and countless other people, you too have probably asked those universal questions we humans have been asking ourselves since the beginning of time. Who are my ancestors? Where did they come from? And how did I get here? For me, it all started back in 1968, when I was just 9 years old and living on a small acreage in central Iowa. It was then I first recall my father, Dwayne Edward Mann, sharing stories about what it was like growing up during the Great Depression and World War II. The year was 1931, in early February, when my father was born in the old town of Moorhead, Iowa. Well, good afternoon. I'm here with my father, Dwayne Mann. It's Father's Day, 2015. That house right behind me, just off his left shoulder, not the house he was born in, but the site that house is sitting on, where my dad was born on February 8th, 1931.
Right.
Hadn't it been for my great-grandmother nursing this little sucker with goat's milk, I wouldn't be here doing this video today. Isn't that right, Dad?
That's the truth, yep.
So happy Father's Day.
Yep.
Love you bunches.
Love you. Bye.
So tell me a little about that house behind you.
Well, the house that's in there now used to be a schoolhouse that was east of Pisgah, about 6-7 miles. I went to 8th grade in that building in a country school. My youngest sister, Shirley, went to school there 3 years in that schoolhouse. And I don't remember this fellow's name, but he moved that schoolhouse over here and then remodeled it, put it on this lot, remodeled it, made it into a home. Yeah. So
we're in the old town of Moorhead.
We're in the old town of Moorhead, yes.
Yep. And if I
1867
is when it was founded.
I think so.
1867.
The signs up there around the corner.
Well, if I just bend a little bit to my left here, for you folks there, this house that's right there.
No.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Is where my great-grandmother Annie Perrin lived and was living when my daddy was born here in this house, or at least where the house used to set there. She walked way up that road for I don't know how many miles to get that goat's milk and brought it back and stuck it in a bottle and stuck the bottle in my daddy's mouth.
I was allergic to my mother's milk. I was allergic to cow's milk. And the doctor had told Dad that he'd done everything he could. And my mother had pneumonia and was really ill. And so my grandmother, after they said I wasn't going to live, came across the street, got me, took me back to her house, told my Aunt Lily to watch me. She took a half-gallon syrup can and walked up
up that road.
Yep, the Jordan there. And at some place, somebody owned goats, and she came home with goat's milk. Fed me the goat's milk. I didn't throw up any of it. Then it looked like gray concrete, and then it started turning pink little by little.
Of course, that story was handed down to you because you probably had no clue what it looked like at that time when you were...
Dad told me about that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Kind of like a runt pig story, right? You were a runt pig and have to put him out of his misery.
I was a little more than a runt because I was 26 inches long.
Oh, wow.
When I was born. I weighed 10 pounds.
Well, You should have been all right.
Well, I was allergic to, had an allergy to my mother's milk and cow's milk. Couldn't keep nothing down. Just
Well,
threw it up.
I guess I'm kind of glad you made it. So happy Father's Day, Dad.
Well, I got 5 other ones that's happy too.
Yeah, we'll talk to them later.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
He nearly didn't make it. He was just 8 days old and near death when my great-grandmother, Annie Perrin, ventured a few miles north of town on foot for a pint of goat's milk from a nearby farmer. That goat's milk saved my father's life. He joined 3 older sisters and an older brother, along with his mom and dad, who were barely scratching out a living on farms they lived on in the hills around Pisgah, Iowa. Times were hard, and life was simple back then. And listening to the stories told sparked a curiosity within me that has taken me on many fact-finding ventures across the country over the past 4 to 5 decades. From Scituate, Massachusetts, to Sutter's Mill in California, to Salt Lake City, Utah, to Canesville, Iowa, and ultimately to the Mann and Perrin homesteads in western Iowa, I have been able to trace and piece together the preceding paths of my ancestors. And so, it's high time I share everything I've learned about my family with my family. It's also time to hand the baton off to a much younger family member to carry on the cause and pass down these family stories for posterity. Alaina Mann, my niece, who you will be meeting shortly, has teamed up with me on this endeavor. I'm excited and grateful that she has shown such an interest in our family history and wants to be part of this. Learning the history of my maternal ancestors has been more elusive. My mother, Beverly June, was adopted by Bernard and Vivian Hosette when she was just 6 months old and grew up in Fairfield, Iowa. It wasn't until 1973 when we learned who my mother's biological parents were. Her mother, my grandmother, is Lena Lang, and her father, my grandfather, is Joseph Ralph Joe Jacques, who was a prominent attorney in Ottumwa, Iowa, just a few miles west of Fairfield. Since much of my mother's lineage was a mystery to me and my siblings, I naturally focused attention on my father's side of the family, and I've been researching, traveling, digging, discovering, and still asking questions ever since about the ancestors of my father's parents, my grandpa, Charles Dean Mann, and my grandma, Anna Leora Perrin. And so, with the help of my niece, Alaina Mann, we created the Mann and Perrin Families of Western Iowa YouTube channel, on which we will be publishing several video episodes and sharing most of what we know and have collected about our family.
My name is Alaina Mann. I am the granddaughter of Dwayne Mann, daughter of John Mann, niece of Brian Mann.
That would be me. So Alaina, tell me how you became interested in your family history.
I think I started showing interest in learning more about our family history when I was pretty young, just listening to all the family stories and wanting to know who all the different people were that were named in these different stories. And
tell me about times where your grandfather has told you stories, and has he piqued your interest anymore by listening to his stories?
He definitely has piqued my interest more, because now that I've gotten older, I think I have learned enough about our family history that I can start to connect the dots more between the timelines and the families involved. And now that I know the more generic family tree, it's easier to put associations to everybody's relationships together. So I think as I've gotten older and listened to his stories more, I've started to value the history a little bit more, because I could just connect to it better.
So what's your understanding today as to where most of this was occurring?
From what I've been told, most of it started like on the East Coast and then traveled down into mainly like central Iowa.
What do you know about the family history of the Perrins and the Manns in western Iowa?
I don't know much back to just like where they settled.
Mm-hmm.
And the main like locations. I've been to Preparation a couple times, and I know there's a lot of history in that area, and the location of the original home of what would be my grandpa's childhood home or great grandpa's childhood home. The ones
Grandpa Dwayne, are you talking about Grandpa Dwayne's
Yeah.
childhood home? Well, Grandpa Dwayne.
No, not that one.
Oh, your great grandfather.
Yeah, maybe.
So Grandpa Mann, who you
Yes.
never met, obviously.
Yeah,
So you've probably been by some of those places.
yeah.
This project that you and I are working on, we will be visiting some of those. I will take you up, and we will take the camera, and we'll go to some of those spots. And I'll probably be, sharing stuff you've never known before, and maybe seeing
Yeah.
some sites you've never known before. But we'll have some
I'll definitely
conversations.
appreciate it more
Yeah.
this time around.
That's right. And there's some things you still can see, and most of which you can't. It's all gone. My dad turns 91 in February. I've loved and admired him my entire life, and this whole video series is a living tribute to him. I cannot tell you the countless hours we have spent together looking through old pictures and documents, discussing and debating dates, events, and locations, visiting places where our families once lived and traveled through, sifting through census documents, old newspapers, scouring through the family history archives in Salt Lake City, and hashing through newly discovered timeline details, and more. Without my dad and all his stories, none of this would be possible.
Let's talk about the YouTube channel and what's in the works. In an attempt to present all of this information in a way that's easy to follow, we've decided to package the initial family history episodes according to decades. Our primary focus has been on my paternal great-great-great-grandfathers, Charles Chauncey Perrin and Richard Montgomery Mann, during the 19th century. We'll be sharing video episodes covering history from 1800 to 1810, 1810 to 1820, and so on, up to the turn of the 20th century. We plan to kick off the video series by first looking back at the 17th and 18th centuries, covering what we know about when the Manns and the Perrins first arrived in this country. After the Ancestry video series, we'll be focusing on my paternal great-grandparents, Charles Dean and Anna Leora Perrin Mann, and their children, my grandfather, great-aunts, and uncles. And finally, we'll share a couple of special episodes diving deeper into the life and death ventures experienced by my great-great-great-uncles, Thomas and Charles Jr. Perrin, during the 1863 to 1865 campaigns on the Northern Plains against the Sioux Indians, and my great-great-uncles, Johnny and Tommy Perrin, who served during World War I. One of my favorite and frequent pastimes is driving around the lush hills of western Iowa on old dirt and gravel roads, primarily in Harrison and Monona counties, where my family homesteaded. Throughout the upcoming video episodes, we will be including many old and present-day pictures and video clips of family farm sites and the beautiful lush hills. I can't get enough of walking and driving through the hills and visiting these sites. I'm certain there's much more to be discovered and told about our family history, but I will leave that to my niece and other family members who catch the bug and pick up the torch to continue the search and pass down stories to future generations. From time to time, I will post some short videos explaining how and where I have been able to obtain so much information about my family, sharing where and how I have found census and other legal documents, located original homestead sites, discovered old roads, and more. I'll share with you the primary tools I use as well, like Ancestry.com and Family Tree Maker, the app I use to keep all the genealogical information and family connections in order. With that, we hope you enjoy the upcoming episodes, and we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mann and Perrin Families of Western Iowa. Be sure to click on that notifications button to get notified when new episodes are published. We welcome your feedback. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or additional family history information you'd like to share. We've included our email address in the description below. Until then, kind regards and thanks for watching. Stay tuned.